Hello, so this is the fourth video in this 100 Desires bucket list series. I hope you've got to watch the other three. I hope you've enjoyed them. And I've said this before, but I hope you're inspired. Write your own list. Like, if you could do anything, and if you felt like money wasn't an issue and time wasn't an issue and responsibilities weren't an issue, like, what would you want to do? What would you come up with? Um, so I've shared the things that I've come up with, and I'd love for you to make your list and share them. I'd love to see them. So here we go. The fourth part of this series. I checked off Break a Dish on Purpose in May of 2018, and then I didn't get to check anything else off until October of 2018. But this was a big one. I had put on my list walk across a country. And when I did that, I was thinking that I would walk across, like, I'd done some research. Like, I found a country, Liechtenstein, that's near the Alps, that's 9 miles, so that's kind of what I had in mind with that one. And what I ended up doing was I did the Camino de Santiago. So this is another one after I created the bumper sticker, Yes is Where the Fun is I met this woman on a cruise, and we were talking about our love of hiking, and she shared with me that she was going to be walking the Camino and asked me if I'd like to join her. She was looking for someone to kind of share rooms with and help with the expenses. So I said yes without really knowing what I was saying yes to. So I get home and I start doing my research on the Camino, and I'm like, what the heck did I just say yes to? So the Camino took me 43 days to complete. I averaged walking 14 miles a day. I started in southern France and walked all the way across northern Spain. I walked past Santiago on to Finisterre, which was another 5 days of walking. But I did it. I walked all the way across northern Spain. The first couple of days of that walk, you're crossing the Pyrenees Mountains. It was beautiful. I've decided that I really dislike walking up hills a lot, but there are so many sayings and so many things that happened on the Camino. I could do an entire video of just that. But the views from the top of those hills were absolutely incredible. And sometimes it's like you'd never know what you would see, the cows or the fog or horses and ponies, And when you walk across a country, you really get to know it intimately. Everything from the tiniest snails, and the Camino you're walking across, everything from dirt and grass to pavement and rocks and everything in between. I didn't realize how much the Camino changed me until probably I'd finished it about a year. And I realized how little I really need. It's like when you walk the Camino, everything that you have is in your backpack on your back, and you're carrying it with you. The Camino will always have a special place in my heart. And one of the things that I say about walking the Camino was I didn't know all the different ways your feet could hurt. It's like I don't know that I'll ever do it again, but I'm so glad that I did. And just the people you meet along the way. Some of the things I've checked off later down the line was with my friend Diane Byler. I met Diane on the Camino. She and I shared a lunch together, next to each other at a sidewalk cafe, and just started talking, and instantly I'm like, you're my people. So she and I are great friends now, and I met her on the Camino. Number 37 on my list was to create my own holiday and celebrate it every year. So October the 18th, which is the day that I completed the Camino, something really special happened. Um, my ex-husband and I had co-created a business together, and he and I had divorced a couple of years earlier, but the business asset was something that still hadn't been settled. So he ended up selling the business and, bought me out of my shares of it. And I got my first payment of two. There were only two payments. I got my first payment the day that I finished the Camino, which was October the 18th. So that's a really special day for me. I completed the Camino. I got my first payment, finally, like a bit of closure for that business sale and that business with my ex-husband. Part of the Camino, you're walking across wine country, you're walking through vineyards. So there's even a place on the Camino where there's a tap where you can either get water or wine out of the tap. And so yeah, Vino Camino Day, October 18th. Let's celebrate. The 24th thing on my list was to sell a painting. So I love dabbling in art. I love being creative. I've always been a bit crafty. So I started doing these acrylic pours. In fact, there's one just above me that's also my artwork. You can see it there. So my nephew's grandma, Sharon Smith, was going to Houston to a quilt show, and I invited her to stay at my house. I wasn't there, I was traveling. So while she was there, she saw one of my paintings and offered to buy it. And honestly, I just thought she was being nice. But she bought a painting, so I sold it to her. And I started creating like bigger paintings and hanging them up in my day spa. And people started buying them. So now I've sold dozens of paintings, but Sharon was the first one to pull the trigger and actually pay for a piece of my artwork. Thank you, Sharon. Number 54 on my list was learn to sail. So I had just completed walking 43 days, 565 miles, and as a reward to treat myself, I flew from Santiago to Lanzarote in the Canary Islands. So I booked a sailing school. I had a couple of things on my list related to sailing. I had spent a month on a boat and I had learned to sail. So I completed my day skipper license. I spent a month on a boat, and I decided that sailing is something that you never really finish learning about. So I would say that I'm pretty good as a deckhand, but I wouldn't quite go sailing with me. But it was an awesome experience to get to know my sailing friends and to have the experience of just being out on the water so many days in a row was incredible. So I checked that one off, learned to sail, even though, like I said, it's a lifelong thing, I'm sure. And then the next thing that I checked off was the fifth thing that I wrote on my list, which was spend a month on a boat. So I got to check those two things off together. And the Canary Islands are incredible. And it was the first time that I'd really got to do things like climb the mast of the sailboat just to learn how that all happened. Learn to sail was the last thing that I did in 2018. To start off 2019, I went to New Zealand. So I have good friends, Kurt and Michelle Krause, who used to live in Houston but moved to New Zealand. So I thought, let me go visit Kurt and Michelle. So I was in New Zealand for 2 weeks. I spent a week with Kurt and Michelle and then a week on my own doing my own thing. So number 44 on my list was to see the Hobbit huts. So yeah, the little Hobbit huts from Lord of the Rings. And it was cool to see. It was a little bit commercialized. So like tour buses that took you in and, brought you back, and very touristy. But they did have a few actors out there, and I did get to see the Hobbit huts. All right, so I gotta say that this next one was number 63 on my list, and the 41st thing that I checked off was see the Waitomo Glowworm caves. This one was absolutely incredible. So I booked an excursion, and this part of the trip I was by myself. So the excursion started off with you rappelling down a hole into a cave. So you rappel down and you get to the bottom and you just look up and you're like, oh my God, like thousands of stars in the sky, but it was these tiny little glowworms. So we did that. We jumped off of a small cliff down into the water, and then we all like latched onto each other's tubes and floated, you know, for like 20 minutes, 30 minutes through these caves with just millions of glowworms up on the ceiling. And then at the end of that excursion, you climb up through a waterfall to get back up out of the caves. So that one was absolutely amazing. All right, this one I'm very proud of. So number 43 on my list was achieve zero debt. And I did that on National Women's Day. It just randomly worked out that way. So I own my day spa, I own my house, my vehicle is paid for, and I had zero credit card debt. So that was a big win in my life to be able to check off achieve zero debt. So that concludes the 4th video in this series. I have one more, and that'll finish up the things that I've completed on the bucket list. So I have 54 things that I've done, so that leaves quite a few to go. And I'm hoping that soon international travel opens back up and that I get to continue checking off some of these things. Thanks for watching. Remember to like and subscribe. I so appreciate it.